Hi, Nicholas Vince here. Today on the Chattering Hour, I'm talking with our producer, Chris Rowe. He gives me an update on what some of our guests have been up to since I interviewed them. And we talk about Malcolm McDowell, Traci Lords, Darren Lynn Bousman, Jonathan Breck, and many more. Up next on the Chattering Hour, Chris Rowe. As well as running the highly successful talent management company Chris Rowe Management for nearly 20 years, Chris is an accomplished and award-winning writer and director of films, most recently working on A Tale of Two Sisters starring Traci Lords. And whilst I'm here, I'd like to ask you, if you haven't already, and if you have, I really am terribly, terribly grateful, please like and subscribe to either the YouTube channel or the podcast platform on which you're listening. It really does make a great difference in letting as many people as possible watch or listen to these shows. But enough of that. Let's get to Chris Rowe. Chris, thank you very much indeed for joining me today and for coming along to catch up with some of our previous guests.
Absolutely. You know, every week we talk to these guests and then people wonder, well, what happened? You know, what are they doing now? Did that project get made? So I thought it would be fun to sit down and just do a little catch up on some of the previous guests that we've had and what they're doing and what new accomplishments they've made.
Cool. Yeah, well, so let's start with our very first guest, which was Malcolm McDowell. What's he been up to?
Well, Malcolm, as you know, is always working. He never stops working. I think he's the hardest working man in show business. And that's not to take any credit away from James Brown, who had that title. But James is no longer with us. So, you know, 2020, right at the end, they had the release of Truth Seekers, which was his Amazon series, which was kind of a paranormal horror show with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. The show was great. The show did very well. The show did not get picked back up for another season. It really was a casualty of COVID. It just, you know, the enormous expenses, they were really shooting that show on a tight budget to begin with. Mm-hmm. And all the additional expenses that would have to go into it just kind of blew it out of control. And that's not the only show. I mean, there's lots of shows that got the axe because of COVID, unfortunately. So for those people hoping to see a season 2 of Truth Seekers, I don't think that's going to be happening. However, you know, Malcolm never stops working. So he has a recurring that you're going to see on Gossip Girl, the new Gossip Girl reboot. He's been filming on that in April and in June. And that should be interesting. And certainly a whole new generation of fans will be checking in and discovering who he is for that. He also, in May, shot a film with Mark Wahlberg and Mel Gibson and called Stew. And that looks like it's going to be fun. And we just finished shooting a movie called The Walk, which has to do with the whole 1970s busing drama that existed and is still pretty controversial to this day on how all of that went down. And he plays an interesting role in that. And he plays with an old castmate of his, Jeremy Piven from Entourage. He just shot that in New Orleans, and he is leaving immediately for Newfoundland, St. John's, to begin a television series that I can't say the name of it just yet because they haven't made the official announcement, but it's a beautiful role, and it's from the producers of Schitt's Creek. So it should be It should be fun. I mean, I've read the script. I've been in the thick of it for a while. It's beautiful. So he's going to be doing that, and I think it's going to be a great success. And it's the 50th anniversary of Clockwork Orange, which is, you know, we talked about that when he was on, that it was approaching, and it's here. Unfortunately, COVID has really hurt a lot of the events that they had scheduled, screenings and big get-togethers. There was a big screening at Cannes Film Festival that was supposed to happen that didn't end up happening, and very unfortunate. But Warner Brothers is going to be announcing, maybe they just announced it, the 50th anniversary 4K release, which they're going to be doing in the fall. And there will be a handful of PR events. That's all kind of coming together now. And you will catch Malcolm at a couple of conventions. Unfortunately, because of his work schedule, he's not going to be able to do many this year, but he will be doing Motor City Nightmares in Detroit this weekend. He'll be coming back there. And then he will be doing Texas Frightmare Weekend, which is his favorite convention. That's in Dallas, and that will be September 10th, 11th, and 12th. So he has a full schedule of work, and a couple of other great films that I can't talk about yet that he's going to be shooting in October and November. So he's pretty much out of commission for the entire year.
That's great. I mean, that's really impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been working hard. But it's great. I mean, to come out of COVID after being kind of, you know, just stuck in nowhere land for so long, and then to suddenly have your entire year filled up is great. And it takes us right through the end of the year. He actually, going into next year, I mean, he's technically scheduled through mid-February of next year, because he has a project he's going to begin in January for 6 weeks, it looks like. So lots of stuff coming from Malcolm. I think because of Clockwork Orange, you know, the official 50th anniversary of that film is actually in December.
Right.
That's when it was actually really released. So I think we're going to continue into 2022 with some of the 50th anniversary stuff, because we just couldn't do it this year. And with December being the official anniversary, then why not? It'll be like one of those rock and roll tours. We'll just go into the next year. Or we'll do like Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and it just never ends.
I was wondering if Elton John was going to do even more, because I think he had to cancel. In fact,
well, he had to postpone, but I laughed because I said, well, you know, he's done the show in Los Angeles twice. And I said, he'll come back. He'll come back to LA. There's no doubt. Elton loves his money too much. He's going to come back. And what did they do? They just announced, I think, 2 nights at Dodger Stadium that he's coming back to LA. It's in his blood. Yeah. Same thing with Malcolm. It's in his blood. The Brits, you guys just never stop working.
Well, this is brilliant. This is great news. There are lots of things for people to look out for in terms of film and TV, but also chances to meet Malcolm, as you say, at Motor City Nightmares and Texas Frightmare. I'll put up the dates and links on this so people can check it out. Absolutely.
And there's also, before I forget, there is one kind of lost film of his that people forget about. It's getting a Blu-ray release for the first time. There's a film he did in the early 80s called Get Crazy, and you get to see Malcolm be a rock star, and he gets to do his moves like Jagger, and you get to see that. It's a funny, crazy movie. I think Lou Reed's in it. It's got kind of an interesting cast, and that's coming out for the first time ever on Blu-ray and maybe even DVD. I don't think it ever came out on DVD. I think it did VHS, and then it didn't come out on DVD, but now it's coming out on Blu-ray, and he participates in some of the special features on that. So be looking for that. That's about to happen as well.
Okay, cool, brilliant. Okay, well, as I say, I'll put some links in and so on, so people have a chance to check it out if they already, you know, if they actually exist at this point. Now, one of my favorite ladies in the world is Traci Lords. How's she been doing? Because she had some really interesting projects that were lined up when we were talking.
Yeah, Traci, she has a couple of things in the works right now. Of course, Traci, like Malcolm, is always doing something. She has her clothing line, and so she's always developing and designing something with that. So she's been working hard, putting together some new product. She shot a short for a movie that she's going to be doing called The Farm. And it's about the kind of the first well-known, well-documented female serial killer named Belle Gunness. And Traci is incredible in this. I mean, you know, Traci did her research. So when she met with the director and the producer of it, she really had a layout of exactly what she wanted to do, how she wanted to do it. She did her research on the character, the look, all of that stuff. Now, of course, Hollywood is Hollywood, and they'll do their own version of Belle Gunness that they decide to do. But I've seen it. They just finished doing editing on it a week ago, and it looks great. And it's really made to help launch the movie, which I think that they're going to be filming, probably start filming within the next 6 to 8 months. But it's clearly period piece, I think 1920s, and they shot it in Indiana. So it's be looking for updates on that. Traci is phenomenal in this. She has a couple of other films in the works. We're just waiting. COVID just keeps pushing things and pushing things. And so that's where we are with Traci.
Brilliant. Excellent.
Now, Traci also, before I forget, Traci also has been kind of absent from appearances and that sort of thing. Last year was the 20th. Was it the 20th? No, 30th anniversary of Crybaby. And so she's making up a few appearances this year for that. She also is going to be at Motor City Nightmares this weekend outside of Detroit. And she will also be at Texas Frightmare Weekend in September. So as everyone knows out there who go to conventions, Texas Frightmare Weekend is the biggest horror convention in the country. And you've been there yourself many times. You know, it's an animal that one can't describe unless you're actually there. And Traci's always a favorite guest there, so she'll be back there as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, if anyone who's never been to Texas Frightmare, it's just wonderful. I mean, as a guest, you're incredibly well looked after. And I think as a visitor as well, you are, people seem to, there's such a great atmosphere. There's so many volunteers to really guide people, answer questions, really make sure everybody just has a very, very good time. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful experience. Now, I think I'm right in saying that Daniel Kraus is actually the only author that we've interviewed so far. And of course, we had Daniel on because he collaborated with George Romero on the Living Dead book. So what's Daniel been up to?
Well, Daniel also is always working and always writing. And he started his TEDDIES, these, you know, like teddy bear, but
yes.
Chronicles, the TEDDIES saga, and he's released the first couple books of that. They threw us away, and they stole our hearts, and it's dark and interesting and sad, and it comes from the mind of Daniel, who's great. Now, The Living Dead, the George Romero collaboration, that did very well in hardback, and it's getting ready to come out in paperback, I think next month or September. So people looking for The Living Dead, or you didn't want to buy the hardback because you didn't want to spend that money, or you couldn't find it, or whatever the reason is, excuses, you can now get it on paperback very, very soon. And as you know, it's a hell of a read. It's like 745 pages. But you know, it's good. That book too was very well reviewed and very well received, and it almost made the New York Times bestseller.
Wow. Well, and also we must
It almost did.
almost did. We also should give a shout out to the audiobook, which is how I got to read all of it, and which is part narrated by Bruce Davison.
Yeah, Bruce was fabulous in that.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that Bruce is a master at, well, he's a master at everything, but he's just got a great voice, and he's done these audio books before. They're tough, but he's done them before. He's done Stephen King, and he's done some others. So yeah, he really helped bring it to life, and it's worth the listen. If you live in cities like Los Angeles and Atlanta and Chicago and New York, where you sit in traffic for hours to only go a few miles, I strongly recommend popping that in and letting Bruce entertain you. And
Yes.
he does half the audiobook. Laurie Cardill does the other half.
Right. Thank you. Now, another one of my favorite guests, and so, again, such a lovely man, and that's Courtney Gaines. We had a really in-depth chat with Courtney. So interesting to see what he's been up to.
Well, Courtney, of course, is he's been working on his music. He's got a few new songs that are out on Apple Music and some of the other platforms. Courtney is just one of those all-around great entertainers. I mean, he's always doing something. He's always writing. In recent years, music has really been important to him, and he's been really working hard on creating some new songs. So it's certainly worth checking that out. He also just had a movie come out called Queen Bees, and he has a really fun cameo in that. That movie stars Ellen Burstyn, Jane Curtin, and Anne Margaret, and it's fun. It's a fun movie, and he shot that in Atlanta. And he also has another movie getting ready to come out called The River, and it's a psychological sci-fi thriller. That's getting ready to come out. And he's also shot a movie. It's a horror film called The Bleeding Dark, which he shot up in the northwest of the United States. So he definitely has some things. He just did a guest star on well, the name of the show escapes my mind, but it'll come to me when we're on someone else, of course. But he just shot an episodic in Atlanta last month. So you know, he's back to doing what he does, working.
Brilliant. One of the other guests we spoke to, of course, was the lovely Jonathan Breck, who's such great company. Jonathan
is he's just fabulous. Now, Jonathan, of course, doesn't do a lot of acting work anymore. He traded in the acting chair for a corporate chair, so he does a lot of corporate work. But he does still work if something good comes up. Jonathan's in the great position that he doesn't have to do acting work if he doesn't want to. So he only does what he wants to do, and if they're paying him. But I do want to clear up one rumor, because in the last few months, there's been lots of chit chat on, is Jonathan in this new Jeepers Creepers movie? And sadly, he is not. This Jeepers Creepers movie went so under the radar, and it was very sly and conniving by the producers, frankly, that most people didn't know that it was even being made. It was shot under a different title. Jonathan wasn't even asked to come back and reprise the role of the Creeper. And I don't have a lot on the release of it, because I think they're trying to figure out what to do. But I can tell you, I doubt very highly that the movie will be any good, because you really don't have any of the original creative team around it. they're just not there. And, you know, Victor Salva, whatever you think of Victor Salva, for whatever reason, who wrote it and directed it, I mean, there's no influence of him in any way, shape, or form in the writing or any of that sort of thing. So they've really done kind of a bizarre offshoot. A lot of people are wondering what's happening with it. And my answer to that is I have no clue, nor do I care. Jonathan isn't in it. And as I said, I just can't imagine it's going to be any good. I heard it was made with a shoestring budget. You know, they did this, if you remember some years ago, the Weinsteins did this with HELLRAISER.
Yeah.
They made that absolutely horrible HELLRAISER movie, which was, I believe, the first one that Doug Bradley had never come back as Pinhead. Yeah. And I think they made it for like, you know, $400,000. It was horrible. But contractually, they had a certain date to do another movie. And if they didn't do another movie by that date, they lost the licensing for it. And so the Weinsteins quickly, their division Dimension, quickly just threw something together and shot something really bad. So I'm afraid it'll probably end up like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whilst I was listening to you, I was just double checking. I wanted to make sure I got the name of the film right. And that was directed by next guest who we're going to talk about, which is Daniel Roebuck. And the film was Getting Grace, which I had a chance to watch after we'd spoken. And I have to say, if anyone has a chance to go and see, it's just beautiful. Daniel, I mean, as well as being a talented actor, is a great filmmaker as well. And he did such a good job on that as well. Well,
yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, what else is he, you know, on top of all that, what else has he been up to?
Well, first of all, he's just a great actor. I mean, he's just done so much work. But then, you know, he got this directing bug, and you know, Getting Grace is really just a touching, beautiful film. It was a while before I got a chance to watch it, and then finally I went to a screening of it, and because he kept asking, "Hey, Chris, come to the screening, and I finally went, and I was just, not that I was ever in doubt that he would do a good job, but I just was very pleasantly surprised. And I'm not particularly a big fan of faith-based films. You got to kind of be careful how you film those, because you walk a fine line on having faith components shoved in your face too much, or a really beautiful story. And it's very easy to have it in your face too much, which to me takes away from it. And he did it beautifully. And so when you interviewed him, he was doing or had just wrapped up Lucky Louie, as I recall. And he's on a new one right now that he's filming literally right now, called The Hail Mary. And that's filming back in Pennsylvania. He too will also be at Motor City Nightmares this weekend and Texas Frightmare Weekend in September. He also has a film that is getting ready to come out called The Stream. It stars, if I'm not mistaken, Jeffrey Combs. And, you know, Jeffrey's a genre favorite. It has Mark Holton, a couple of others. I can't remember, Tim Reed and a few others in it. But it's a horror film, and he'll be fabulous in it, as he always is. He also, there's a lot of rumor out right now that, you know, he's been working on the new Rob Zombie movie, The Munsters. And all I can say is, I can't say anything else, but be looking for that. I think that's going to be pretty interesting. They're not shooting it in America. It's all being shot over in Europe. But The Munsters from the mind of Rob Zombie should be pretty interesting. Definitely for Rob Zombie fans, there's, you know, going to be things to look forward to coming
Wow. Well, yeah. As long as they keep Herman Munster coming up from the from underneath the staircase, that's all I always remember. I was always fascinated by the fact that they had the staircase and it rose up, and then Herman Munster.
Exactly.
The great Fred Gwynn, yeah.
Wasn't it Spot that was down there with him?
Yes. It's a grandpa, and it's just like I think, I mean, I love the Addams Family, don't get me wrong, but I was always a big fan of the Munsters. So, yeah.
Well, you know, the Addams Family, they're doing the animated movie. The first one was successful. Now they're doing another one, and I believe Tim Burton's developing an Addams Family television show, which will be extraordinary. I have no doubt. So,
yeah.
You know, these things always have a resurge, and every so often. So the Munsters and the Addams Family, they're back.
Cool. Very, very cool. Now, one of our guests who I often quote when I'm talking to friends about acting, and that's Lynn Shaye, because she shared some really fascinating insights into the job of acting and the approach to acting and so on. So I'm really excited to find out what she's been up to.
Well, Lynn Shaye, like so many others, she's always going to work. At this point, she probably turns down more than what she takes on because she's so highly in demand, but she's a wonderful actress. She's a wonderful human being. And, you know, I thought her interview kicking off season 2, January, I thought was fantastic because, like Courtney Gaines, she really kind of went there and just talked about things that she hadn't talked about in a long time, and real inside scoops on things that, you know, the average person doesn't know. So she's always going to work. So she has coming out soon, Ted Bundy, the American Boogeyman, that's going to be coming out. She plays Mrs. Bundy in that. And of course, we know how horrible Ted was. That's going to be coming out soon. She also has a film coming out later in the year called Jackson's Hole. It's a horror mystery film. She, of course, plays a lead in it, and looks to be very good and interesting. And there's, of course, now all the back and forth chit chat on a new Insidious film, which will happen. You know, every time they say it's not going to, it does. And it will happen. There's way too much talk about it. And the last movie did very well. It was successful. The Last Key. I mean, Bruce Davison was in that. And I believe the film ended up doing, you know, like $70 million. And because it's Blumhouse and they don't spend any money on anything, you know, it didn't cost a lot of money to make. So they made their money back. And they'll continue to make those films as long as they make money. And so I would say, buckle up. There will be another. We'll just have to wait and see.
Right. Okay, well, it's great to know that she has found, because she was, I think this is one of the extraordinary things is during the conversation, you know, she was at a time where she's thinking, no, the phone hasn't gone recently. And she's wondering, and I'm thinking, no, you really are going to work, Lynn. I can't imagine people not wanting to work with you.
Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's the old actor thing, isn't it? You always think that this is your last job, regardless of how successful it is. But you know, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, let's think about it. There have been many actors who have been in very successful movies and their careers ended.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason. It just happened. So, you know, I'm sure as an actor, that's what you always worry about.
Yeah. You're always thinking, how can I earn some more money? Good. Now, one of the 3 directors that we actually interviewed was Darren Lynn Bousman, who, of course, had the Saw film about to come out. And from what I've seen, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Seems to have been done very, very well. He certainly had a good time doing it from what I remember of the conversation.
Yeah, well, Spiral came out. It was very successful. The reviews on it were very good. It starred Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. So you had a very competent cast. And it certainly was a big springboard for Darren, because he's booked up now back to back projects. And I'm really happy for him, because Darren's a great director. He's a great visionary. He is in Saudi Arabia filming a movie right now. And he has 2 other projects lined up, one in Europe, and then he's going to be doing a movie called the LALAURIE Mansion, based off of Delphine LaLaurie, the serial killer woman from socialite woman from New Orleans. And so I imagine he'll probably be in New Orleans filming that at some point going into next year. That should be fantastic. You know, her character was featured in the season 3 of American Horror Story, which Kathy Bates brilliantly portrayed her. And I mean, it's one of the most sought after destinations, attractions in New Orleans, to go to her mansion, which is right there in the French Quarter. So it'll be good. Darren will do his thing. He'll make it brilliant, as he always does. And I look forward to joining him on set on that, because that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. Yeah, yeah. Now, we've already mentioned Bruce Davison earlier on when we were talking about Daniel Kraus and the audio book, but what has Daniel been up to? Sorry, what's Bruce been up to?
Yeah, well, Bruce, again, like Malcolm and Lynn, he just never stops working. He goes from project to project to project. Of course, this is the 50th anniversary year of Willard, his classic masterpiece about that lovely rat. And it's wonderful, because it's, you know, it's available now for the first time ever on Blu-ray. It kind of got lost. No one kind of knew who had the rights for it. It just kind of was out there for so long, and then suddenly it got released, I believe, last year. So people can get Willard now, and I know that there were a few things planned just around the 50th, different events, different places. Don't know if they're going to happen because of COVID. It kind of squashed a lot of those screenings and that sort of thing. But we'll have to see. He has a new film that's going to be coming out called The Manor, which stars Barbara Hershey, fantastic actress, and it's a psychological thriller horror film that will be on Amazon. He's also filming a really good recurring on OZARK right now. He's been filming on this since November of last year, and he's going to be continuing to film on it for the next couple of months until he wraps all the episodes that he needs to do. But OZARK is basically, one of Netflix's biggest shows, and Jason Bateman and Laura Linney and those guys. What a great show, and we're really pleased to have Bruce on there. He plays a kind of swarmy former senator, and I think it'll be pretty fantastic. Bruce will do his thing. He's also recently done a couple of films. Can't really get too deep into them, but he did one of them in Latvia, and he with Jonathan Rhys-Meyers, I believe, and he also just did a couple of episodics while he had time here in Los Angeles. So busy all the time. He's got a pretty busy fall, and lots more to talk about down the road on that. I can't get into specifics on all of them, but they're good.
Good. That was, again, harking back to The Living Dead, one of the other fascinating guest who I really enjoyed talking to, and that is George Romero's widow, Suzanne. And we talked in depth about The Park, the film that he'd done. And again, a fascinating piece, an absolutely fascinating film. Because Suzanne's working with the foundation. So what's been happening there?
Well, the amusement park, of course, is this lost Romero film that he did back in the very early 70s. And it's just kind of been rediscovered again, remastered, and Shudder, they've done a release of it. The response to it, it's been fantastic. It's really, it's a real life horror, because it's really about how society treats and takes care of its elderly. And the movie was commissioned by the Lutheran Church, believe it or not. But it's just as important of a subject today as it was when it came out, which makes it so much of a Romero classic, because George's movies always have to do with social commentary about what's going on. And it's, I have to say, when I saw the movie for the first time, I was mesmerized by it, because it was Romero, and of course, you know, I was his manager for so long, and we never had discussed this movie ever. But to watch it and to really see how relevant it was today, it really kind of gives you chills, because it shouldn't be. Elderly having insurance, and the elderly being able to go to places and function like everyone else, and making sure that it's handicap accessible, and all of these little things, you just can't imagine that they would be an issue today, and yet they are. They're a huge issue throughout Europe. I mean, talk about handicap accessibility. Not so handicap accessible in places like Edinburgh, where it's cobblestone streets and the restrooms are upstairs or downstairs, you know, so that's tough. So the success of that has been good. Suzanne, of course, plays two very important roles. She's in charge of the foundation, GARF, the George A. Romero Foundation, which this was GARF's first big project. And then she also is gatekeeper to his estate. And so, you know, she has a lot of projects on the table, a lot of projects for film and TV that they're optioned, there's stuff in development. So she's a very busy woman, and wearing a couple of different hats. And we literally just hit the fourth anniversary of George's passing just a week and a half ago. So it's weird to think that he's been gone for 4 years, because it just doesn't feel like it's been that long. But it's been 4 years already. So anyways, always support Suzanne and everything she's doing for the foundation, and always look forward to see what she's working on. There's some really great Romero projects that, you know, the world has never seen, and I hope that they get the chance to.
Cool, excellent. And the last guest we're going to touch on tonight is the lovely Dee Wallace.
Yeah, well, Dee never stops working. You know, she just goes from project to project to project. And when I see Dee, she's like, oh, I'm so tired. Baby, I'm so tired. I'm like, well, that's because you never stop working. But she's incredible. She's a machine. She too will be at, I think, Motor City Nightmares this weekend. And by the way, this was not planned. This is just so happens that it's this weekend, and we're doing this show today, the day before. But I think she's also scheduled for Texas Frightmare weekend as well. But I think they're doing an ET thing there. But Dee, this year she's had a recurring on 911, which is a successful show here in the States that Ryan Murphy produced. She also has a new horror thriller called The Nest that I believe just came out a week ago. And she has a long line of work that's sitting there to do that will keep her busy pretty much for the rest of the year, because she never stops working. She goes from job to job. But when you're amazing like that, that's what happens.
Yeah, an extraordinary. It really was a fascinating chat I had with her as well.
Well, she's a fascinating person. I mean, she really is kind of that you could be from anywhere and become successful story. You know, she grew up in the Midwest and Kansas and poor and made a career for herself. And, you know, now certainly there's no industry professional that you mention Dee Wallace to and they don't know who she is. I mean, it's just, and if they don't know who she is, then they shouldn't be in this industry. They should be banned, should be ousted. That's how I feel.
Yes, I can't imagine anybody not knowing Dee's work, really. And of course, she has the, you know, the other stuff, the healing stuff that she also does as well. And again, going, you know, thinking back to the interview that I did with her, again, somebody else gave some really fascinating insights into what it is to be an actor and the craft of acting.
And she's brilliant at it. She does a lot of teaching and coaching. That she's been doing it for years, and she's so good at it. She's had some of her students, they have gone on to really do some great stuff. And it's funny because every once in a while, as a talent manager, when people send me their resume and headshots and all of that stuff to look at, it'll have skills and it'll have who they've trained with. And, you know, very often I will see Dee Wallace listed as someone that they trained with. And I'll say, well, you know, I noticed that you were with Dee Wallace. How was that? Was she good? And always waiting to see if they'll say something bad so I can say, well, you know, she's a really good friend of mine. And it's never happened. Everyone just loves her. They just say the greatest, most complimentary things about her. But that's Dee. I have a picture of Dee hanging here in my office that I look at every day. It greets me when I come into my office from E.T.'s 20th anniversary release back in 2002. So I see Dee every day when I come into my office. And I also wanted to mention too, this is being worked on right now. It kind of slipped my mind, but for Texas Frightmare Weekend, a 50th anniversary screening of Clockwork Orange is in the works with one of the theaters there in Dallas. So we're working on that right now, trying to make that happen. So unfortunately, a lot of the 50th anniversary stuff just isn't going to happen or got pushed, but we're working on making that happen right now.
Right.
So check in Texas Frightmare Weekend, look at their website. There will be updates. Hopefully we can get that up and going because we have lots of people asking if there's anything Clockwork Orange going on. In fact, Malcolm's website, he finally launched his website in December, which is malcolmmcdowellonline.com. And that's the number one question that we just keep getting from everyone. What's going on for Clockwork Orange? What's going on for Clockwork Orange? And it's crazy. And, you know, we really have nothing to say because we just don't know, except now that Warner Brothers is going to release that 4K 50th anniversary release. But they'll have to tune in and see what's going on.
Right. Well, folks, if you haven't ever had the chance of listening to Malcolm McDowell do a Q&A on anything, but also particularly on the making of Clockwork Orange, I highly recommend it. I was lucky enough to attend a Q&A where he was being interviewed by Gary Oldman in Los Angeles a few years back, and it's just such a wonderful evening. And you know, Malcolm, as you can tell from the show, is just one of the world's great raconteurs as well. So yeah,
that's been next year is 10 years. That was in 2012.
Was it?
Yeah, it's. I can't believe that much time has gone by. It's crazy.
Good Lord.
And you look the same. I don't know. I was looking at pictures. In fact, you look better. I was looking at pictures of you and Malcolm and myself and others, Gary Oldman and others, and I thought, well, everyone looks the same except me.
Well, I think you're being very kind, but you'd look great yourself. Don't forget that. Chris, this has been absolutely fascinating. Is there anything else we need to tell folks about that we've forgotten? Obviously, people need to check out Motor City Nightmares, which is where?
That's in outside of Detroit, Michigan, in Novi, Michigan, I believe, and that's this weekend. And I think it's going to be a great show. It's a very solid show.
Yeah.
And if you feel that your body is starved from not being able to go to conventions or see some of your favorite folks, well, this is the perfect opportunity if you live in Michigan.
Yeah.
But be safe, be responsible,
Yeah.
wear your mask, keep your hands clean, use hand sanitizer, and hey, if you haven't been vaccinated, maybe just keep your ass at home, because you probably shouldn't be out. That being said, if you do come out and you're going to take those risks, practice all those safety protocols and bring lots of money, because after all, we want you to spend money while you're there. And then the same thing with Texas Frightener Weekend, which is just, it's the greatest show. In terms of what's coming up for the Chattering Hour, there's some really good interviews coming up. I always hate to say too much because I don't want to jinx anything, but we've got some really good people that because of filming, it's been hard to get them strapped down for a date, but there's some really good people. And it's really interesting because I look back at this almost year. It's been almost a year.
Mm.
It's we've had some incredible guests. We've had a tremendous response from all over the world. And as I always have to say, thank you, Nick, because you're kind of the mascot of this whole thing, and I'm just the fat producer that sits back and does all the stuff in the background. But you do all this hard work, and you do it brilliantly, and people enjoy you every week. And hey, you make it come to life. So thank you, as always.
Well, thank you indeed, sir. And yes, I know how much hard work you put into this. So, yeah, I think we're kind of even Stevens on that as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, this has been wonderful. Thank you very much. It's been really good to hear about what these great people are up to. And it's so exciting to hear about some of these new projects. So, folks, I'm going to say goodbye to Chris now, but also I am going to recommend you come back joining me next week with basically for some more great stories from the worlds of horror, thriller, and suspense. And in the meantime, as I say, Chris, thank you very much indeed.
Absolutely. Be safe and be well.
Yes.
I'll use your line.
Which I pinched off you anyway. So
I think I remember writing that in one of the scripts one time.
You did. And I just thought, I like that. I'll use it each week. Anyway, folks, join me next week for some more great stories. And in the meantime, as Chris says, stay safe and well.